Hey everyone, welcome to Promethean Tides. I am General, and as always, I am joined by Breaker. What's going on, Breaker?
When I was a little girl, my parents told me that if you dug a hole deep enough, you'd get to China. So I've always felt a connection with the Chinese.
Man, that is deep. That is deep. Thank you, Pelosi. Uh, so, uh, yeah. What's going on, everyone? Thanks for joining. Remember to like and subscribe. And we got a few stories to talk about today. We got uh, the biggest story is China. Their response to Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. We have the continuing story of the monkeypox outbreak. I said last week that we'll continue to follow this story, and god damn it, we will. And also, Alex Jones has been ordered to pay out about $50 million over his comments about the Sandy Hook school shooting, and we might get into a couple of other things. Those are the main things that we have lined up. So, yeah, we can start with Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. She went there, and I don't know why she went there. In fact, I'm not sure that anyone except for Nancy Pelosi knows precisely why she went there. But it seemed to have been mildly upsetting to the Chinese government.
You know, if I were to wager a couple of guesses about this, probably what it was technically supposed to be Biden going there, but seeing as Biden is basically maintained by the scent of the hair of young girls at this point. They had to send the next best option, which was drunken Skeletor to Taiwan. And in my opinion, this is just like a type of proxy saber rattling. It's like, you see, we're sending American dignitaries to Taiwan without saying out loud. It's like, we know Taiwan is a thing, and they make all of our computer chips. So you better fuck off, China.
So, in response to this happening, China, they basically surrounded Taiwan. They started launching a whole bunch of missiles. A few of those missiles actually flew directly over Taiwan, and also some of the missiles they landed in Japanese waters. So that's all really interesting. China is definitely trying to show the world that they are extremely upset. Um, there's a few things to get into here. So, uh, I guess that we can start with number one. What are some reasons why Nancy Pelosi decided to visit Taiwan? Well, right, as you mentioned, Breaker, there are they're a massive hub for the manufacturing of semiconductors, and the U.S. is very dependent on Taiwan for all of these, and it turns out that our economy it's largely based on semiconductors. Just about everything that you buy has a semiconductor in it, and the lack of semiconductors has driven up the price of a lot of items. So things such as like vehicles that require semiconductors. The price of vehicles has gone up because of the shortage. I think that it's been like a year and a half since the Xbox Series X and the PS5 were released, and there are still shortages of these consoles. Uh, so yeah, it's an issue, and um, it's possible, or I think that actually one of the one of the companies in Taiwan that manufactures these semiconductors, I guess that they're planning on relocating to the United States. So it's possible that Pelosi was going there to figure out, how to best ease the transition, and also make sure that her stock portfolio is reflective of what's going to happen, and so that she can make sure to secure her financial future and make the best financial decisions that she possibly can with her insider information. So good on Pelosi. In general, if you had basically just done whatever investment Pelosi did, you would have been able to beat out basically just about every mutual fund out there. You would have been able to beat out the S&P 500. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, she's a financial guru. I'll tell you what.
Not financial advice in any official capacity. Please consult a qualified professional before investing in anything, which is not us.
That is true. But you know who is who basically has a better track record than Warren Buffett? Nancy Pelosi. She is just if she invests in it, it's probably a good idea. Not financial advice. I'm just saying, historically speaking, man, she's good at picking those stocks. So I would imagine that it might have something to do with that. It also might be that someone had to go over to Taiwan in person and inform them that if China invaded, the U.S. would not be helping them, or maybe would be helping them. So, yeah, no one is quite clear as to why Pelosi was going over there. Now, before she was going over there, China was making threats, and they were saying, "Oh, you better not go over there, Pelosi. We'll be really upset." And there was a lot of people, especially on the conservative side of things, who were saying that, well, actually, it's a good thing that she's going over there, and we support Pelosi in this because she can't, she has to stand up to China. We can't let China bully us into allowing them to dictate where our public officials can and can't go. That's a good point. I would agree with that, but I'm not sure what Pelosi was up to there exactly, and I'm not sure if I would support it if I knew precisely what it was, but there was that.
Yeah, like my general consensus on this whole thing is just like basically offhanded freaking militaristic maneuvers and saber rattling. It's like, better be careful, China, or don't you screw with Taiwan now. You hear? Come on, man, America, China, Xi Jinping. You start messing around Taiwan, I'm gonna take you back behind the woodshed and introduce you to Corn Pop. Come on, man, you know the thing.
Not Corn Pop.
Corn Pop is a bad dude.
Yeah, I guess that Biden was too old and feeble to make it to Taiwan himself, so they sent the other incredibly old and feeble person.
That's all they fucking got. What else are they gonna do? They're all like old fucking skeletons. The Clintons were probably too busy drinking the blood of children or something. I don't know.
That's true. You know what? I would have loved to if they had sent AOC there. I think that would have just been brilliant. She would have gone over and she would have said, China, they're being really mean, and it's not appropriate what they're doing, and it's just, I don't like it. And man, that would have been really powerful words from AOC.
You know what? It would be even better would if they sent Biden's fucking wife, and she would have went over there. It's like the Taiwan is a great country, and you are as diverse as the egg rolls and wonton soup of our local bondagas. Compare them to fucking food. That would have been great. That would have been so much better.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
And then China would have been like, oh, you compare them to food. We're going to have to go over there and eat them up.
So, yeah, this was very upsetting to China. And now here's the thing, right? So they surrounded Taiwan, launched some missiles, lots of saber rattling, and they very much they did not want this to happen. I guess that this is basically the biggest political person that we've sent over to Taiwan. It's the Speaker of the House. That's a pretty big position. And so I this was very upsetting. Now, the China, and by China here I mean the People's Republic of China, not Taiwan, which is also China.
Famously strong and robust democracy.
Yes, but the explicitly communist People's Republic of China, they very much want to take Taiwan back. They believe that it is essentially it's a province that has gone rogue, and that they need to take it back. I think this is, of course, kind of a preposterous position to have in my opinion, but whatever. But China they're facing some rather problematic things internally. So there's especially in the more rural regions of China, there's been issues with the banks. People effectively the banks were they were doing some shady things with the money that was being invested into them. They were trying to guarantee, I believe, something like a 4% interest rate annually, which is like insanely high. And they were able to do this because they were basically taking people's money and just investing it into the Chinese stock market, doing a little bit of gambling with it, and it was working for a while until, well, it stopped working and a global recession occurred, and, well, oopsie poopsie, now they can't give the people their money back because it's gone. It stopped existing. This has led to many protests happening across China. And that's more in the rural areas. Now, in some of the city centers, you have people who basically they purchased a house before it was built. So there's these very, very large apartment complexes that are constantly being put up in China. And it is it's like a major way that people are able to invest money and try to save for the future. It's a little bit like actually the stock market of China. Actually, it's a major economic engine of China. People take their money and they buy houses with it, and as a result, there are many development companies that are erecting just tons and tons and tons of apartment towers. Now, unfortunately, there's been some issues with the supply chain, in part due to the whole COVID thing, and these companies, they've been unable to actually build a lot of these apartments. So you have apartments that are paid for, that people are currently paying mortgages on, and these apartments have yet to be constructed, and they're being delayed. And this is also causing a lot of upset people within China. So there's been a lot of protests happening, and if you are part of the CCP, and you're one of these communist jackasses in charge, this is rather scary to you, because the last thing that you would want is for the people to start rising up. You could actually have a revolution on your hands, and the party is completely aware of this. This is why sometimes people say that China is a paper tiger, because the party has to make sure that everyone's lives are decent and that the economy keeps growing. Because if it ever stopped, then the people would start to get a little bit upset, and that would be quite a threat to the sovereignty of the party. So internally, that's what's happening in China. So if you wanted to prevent that, what would be a good way of doing that? Well, maybe you start saber rattling, and maybe you try to start like a little war, right? I mean, it's great for the approval of your party if you get into a war, because then you have a common enemy, and the people will support you. So that probably had something to do with China's response to Pelosi landing. It may or may not be that they're actively trying to take Taiwan back shortly, but it certainly does kind of make the U.S. a common enemy of both the people and the CCP, and I think that works out in their interest. So, yeah, just kind of a little geopolitical clusterfuck.
Yeah, probably out of all like the major world power countries, China is like hanging on by the thinnest of strands, even more so than America. Because, okay, in China, if a revolution cracked off that would potentially spiral into some type of military coup attempt or something, China is a freaking nuclear superpower. So, whichever ragtag group ended up taking power once all the freaking dust had settled would now be in control of thousands of nuclear weapons. And they might not, like, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, so whoever ended up taking over from there might be even worse than our dear leader Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, that is very possible. There's not a lot of overt opposition parties in China. Mostly because I'm pretty sure that they'll just kill you for being in opposition to communism. But
or they'll put you in the naughty chair and then you'll wish you were dead.
Right, yeah. But I am sure that there are other political factions in China that are underground that would rather not have the communists in power, and I'm sure that any one of those factions would love to go ahead and take control of the military and seize the use of those nuclear weapons. Fuck yeah.
Well, remember when the protests, like the disease that shall not be named protests happened in China a few years ago? They did like fucking really quick flash mob protests, and there were a lot of freaking people there, and they spray painted the security cameras, and they raised all kinds of hell, and they were in and out before the freaking SWAT teams even showed up.
Yep, yeah, there's legitimate political dissent in China, and it doesn't take much to start up a revolution. So Yeah, I guess we will see what comes of this.
One positive thing, if there ever is a revolution in China, those people, whoever it is after that, are going to be the most anti-communist people on the face of the earth.
I mean, yeah, I bet they're going to be really based, to be fair.
It's going to be like Russia, but with more money and better technology.
Yep. So, as a result of this, China has basically closed off discussions with the United States. So, I guess China's decided that they don't want to talk to us anymore. They're giving us a bit of the silent treatment. I get it. As someone who has dated women before, I know about the silent treatment. And yes,
I don't talk to you, America. You make me feel bad.
that's exactly right. Yeah. No, actually, I believe that was their public statement. And yes, they've closed down talks with the United States, and best of all, Russia said that if China decided to take Taiwan, then Russia would back them. Much like how China said that if Russia took the Ukraine, China would back them. So we have essentially the creation of a power block here. It's we're going back to Cold War II, something fucking boogaloo, and it kind of seems to me like this is a way that you could actually get the exciting final chapter in the World Wars trilogy. The first and the second one came out, great successes, very popular, lots of interest and intrigue. But they've been sitting on their hands, fucking releasing the final chapter, and a lot of people have been waiting for it. But it's been a long time. They had that mini series that lasted for way too long, the Cold War saga. But it wasn't. It was interesting or whatever, but it wasn't like a proper World War. So I think World War III would be very interesting. Wrap up some of the cliffhangers and the dangling loose plot threads. But yeah, we will see what happens with that. But it does look like the writers are doing all the setup to hint at the World War III.
Cold War II, Red Dawn Boogaloo.
Yep. It's whatever happens. I think it'll end up being exciting.
Yay! I'm betting for Russia.
Russia, the weakest of the three, actually comes out as being the winner. Yeah.
Well, after they secure the frickin' Donbass and the Black Sea trade routes, and our frickin' sanctions backfiring and making their money worth twice as much as ours, and they're going to the BRIC system and basing the money on gold, so, it's looking a lot better for them, all things considered.
Well, and they do have a metric fuck ton of oil.
And natural gas.
Yeah.
And by the way, a funny story about Russia. In Canada, there was a turbine for one of the pipelines in Russia, the natural gas pipelines, and it was in Canada getting repaired. Now, this is a custom-built pipeline turbine that would only work on the Russian side of the pipeline because it's specifically designed to go in that part. And Canada was like, meh, I don't want to give it back to Russia. Vladimir Putin is a stinky diaper baby like Orange Man. And Russia was like, oh, fuck off, Justin. No one likes you. You're like the least popular fucking world supervillain. And Justin's like, oh, sorry about that. And he was in the process of sending it back to Russia, but it had to go through Germany. And when Germany got it, they were just like, no, we're not giving it back. And Russia was just like, okay, I turned down natural gas. And he turned the freaking pipeline down to like 20% capacity for Germany's natural gas, and they all freaked out, and their fucking stock market bombed. And even then, they were like, no, stinky poo-poo Putin isn't getting the freaking turbine. And Putin is just like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, this is precisely what you get when your country is led by cucks.
It's like 4-year-olds throwing a fucking tantrum like, no, you're not getting the toy back.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? If you have a weak leadership, leadership that isn't willing to stand up to an enemy, then you actually increase the risk of war, right? So, I would like to point out just an interesting coincidence here. When we had Trump in office, China wasn't pulling any of the shit. Russia wasn't pulling any of the shit, and that's because Trump was and still is a crazy fucking asshole. I mean, he absolutely is. He's unpredictable. He'll do shit just randomly, and he's a jackass. And he's willing to just say shit that isn't always the nicest. And well, what that does is it makes other competing nations a little bit wary of fucking with the U.S. too much, because they don't know what Trump might do. Is he crazy enough to just fucking launch a nuke? Maybe. Now, let's contrast that to how Biden has been leading the country. Doddering old man in a wheelchair on dementia meds, who probably should be living in an assisted care facility. And when China started launching missiles over Taiwan, he went, oh, you know what? We should stop testing our ICBMs because we wouldn't want to offend China, right? That sort of leadership is actually what gets us into war, because China will then say, oh shit, now's our opportunity. This guy ain't gonna do shit. Let's take some stuff. This is not what we want or need. We have to project strength. Projecting strength is how you avoid conflict, literally. So, yeah. But, you know what? Here's the thing. Millions of Americans, more than 70 million Americans, they got through 4 years of Trump. They had experienced the return of manufacturing to America. They had experienced just a steadily climbing GDP, and accelerated growth in the economy. People were becoming wealthier than they had ever been. The number of employment was down to record level lows. Basically, everyone was employed to the point that employers had to compete for employees, and even places like McDonald's had to start giving healthcare to their fucking burger flippers, right? Because they had to compete for all of these employees. It was such a good place to be, and fucking America was becoming energy independent, and the price of gas was at $2. We were starting to draw down our bullshit wars in the Middle East. I mean, things were going good, but you know what? The Americans, they looked at that and they said, hold on. We're winning too much. We're winning so
You're gonna
much.
get tired of winning. They got tired of winning. They got sick of it. Believe me, I warned them in advance before they elected me that you're gonna win so much you're gonna get tired of it. And you know what? The American people have spoken. They were tired of winning. We won too much.
Exactly. And so more than 70 million Americans, they came out and they said, you know what? This is too much winning. I believe it's time for some good old-fashioned American suffering. And you know what? They voted for it. And they brought it in. God bless them. Okay? Because now we are facing all of the worst shit. Just the polar opposite of the Trump administration. Everything is worse off. The price of food is insane. The price of gas is insane. The money is devalued. Stocks have lost their value. Commodities, gold, silver, they've lost their value. Crypto has lost its value. Everything is in the shitter. We're in a recession, even though the White House tells us that we're not, because they decided to redefine it in such a way as to make us not in a recession, even though we are clearly in a fucking recession. And best of all, we've been able to export it to the entire rest of the world. It's not just the United States that's suffering. No. When those 70 million Americans stood up and voted for Biden, they said, you know what? It's not enough to have this suffering be just contained within our own nation. We need to make sure that other people get to experience this as well. It is important that we export this globally so that everyone can take part in the beautiful suffering that Joe Biden will cause. And God damn it, he fulfilled that promise. Joe Biden, he got up and he made sure, you know what? All nations throughout the entire world will experience a global recession. All nations will experience incredibly high cost of gas. All nations will experience incredibly high cost of food. And you know what? In the future, here's the great thing. It's going to be even worse. It's going to get even worse, especially maybe come this winter. I think that a lot of Americans will be more or less okay, but there are people that will start dying from lack of food availability in some poor nations. You know what? Biden, he will have fulfilled his promise to make the world just a way fucking worse place. So we here at the Promethean Tides, we applaud Biden. He's a lion of a man.
Come on, man. America. You know, I approve that message. And you know what else I have to say? To all of our African American listeners, just remember, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black.
That's just facts, man. That is just facts.
I used to sit on the stand, and the kids, they come up to me in the pool, and they rub my legs, and the hair would stand up and turn blonde in the sun, and the kids would jump up and down in my lap. I love kids jumping up and down in my lap. That's how I learned about roaches.
Yeah, that's fucking words of wisdom, man. So
All things aside, I actually had to sit down with somebody, and we brainstormed for about an hour, and we thought, okay, what the fuck was he trying to say? And we figured it out. It was in the days of segregated swimming pools. What he was trying to say was that he remembered the days when the segregation ended, and blacks and whites could swim together in the same pool, and the kids would be curious because they'd never seen a white person. So it was the reverse. I want to touch the black person's hair because it looks like sheep's wool, but the reverse of that's I want to touch the white man's hairy leg because the hair stands up and turns blonde in the sun. I don't think, even when you try and help him by translating his senile bullshit into something more rational sounding, it actually gets worse.
Were you ever able to figure out what Trin and Anashaba pressure means?
And Batacast
So I believe that the true Inanana Shabda pressure, I think it's true international cooperation under pressure or something along those lines. I believe, but I've never. I still don't know. It's still an unanswered question.
Okay. If it's like an Alzheimer's gaffe, I'm not a medical expert, and we're not diagnosing the president with anything in any official capacity. We are not medical experts. In Alzheimer's, there's like this metaphasic word replacement where you'll say pan instead of pin. The syllables stay the same, but sometimes the vowels can shift. So if you take that into account, Habanamana Shabada pressure and the cadence, I think it meant like homes for impoverished Americans or something.
Oh, his campaign promise to impoverish millions of Americans. Yeah.
If you want to take that and run with it, you can. I mean, even when you try and make his bullshit make sense, it just gets worse. There's no helping the man. He is just a black hole of failure.
No. See, you're calling it failure. I'm calling it just tremendous success at making things worse.
I guess that's a different way of looking at it.
Exactly, man. You gotta see the cup as half full.
You always gotta look on the bright side, believe me. Nobody knows more about looking on the bright side than me.
Like, if you have half of a line of crack, you don't say that it's, oh, the crack line is half empty. No, you say the crack line is half full, okay?
Well, then after you do the crack, you're just like, I still want more crack.
Yeah, exactly. So
just like Joe Biden experienced recently with his frozen forehead and massive saucer-like cocaine eyes. In my headcanon, personally, I'm not saying that this really happened. For entertainment purposes only, my headcanon reality is like Joe was getting ready to do that freaking speech. He's like, Hunter, get in here and bring me some of the premium shit. And Hunter just like rubs a bunch of freaking crack on the head of a child slave and stuffs it under his face. He's like, ah! All those little child slaves just wandered around Democrat-owned mansions.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
That's why he's always sniffing the kids. It's like, because behind closed doors, he's literally doing like hair bumps off the children.
Right.
He just sprinkles crack on their hair and sniffs it out.
Right. It's like, normal people would do a line of coke off of like a hooker's breasts or something, but Biden is over there. It's got to be in the hair of the children.
Well, there are stranger fetishes.
Yeah, absolutely. That video, that was the weirdest thing. It looked like a deep fake. Either that or he was on something, because his eyes were wide and they did not blink. That was weird to watch.
And also, there were jump cuts galore. It was like a YouTuber's apology video level of jump cuts.
Yeah.
I'm trying to apologize for fucking children in the ass. Let me think exactly what to say. And they just sit in front of the camera for like 5 hours, and they take all that footage and they hand it off to the freaking editors. Like, make me look good. And the editor is just like, jump cut, jump cut, jump cut, jump cut, jump cut.
I bet that most people are familiar with the video, but for anyone who isn't, I'll leave a link in the description down below to this video. It's quite bizarre to see.
That indeed. On to the next story before I get too drunk to continue.
Yeah. So, we also have, I guess, more and more cases of monkeypox. It is up to 7,500 confirmed cases within the United States.
How dare you bring up monkeypox? I'm queer.
Well,
You're shaming my lifestyle. You should be ashamed.
it's not me doing it. It's the pox doing it. But or in some interpretations, it's God doing it. But yeah, the
Any god that wouldn't allow me to have an orgy with 15 men is no god that I would believe in.
Yeah, very, very true, very true. You know, God, God is should be very much a libertine, right? Like,
Exactly.
so
Just like Mother Gaia, that is the lifeblood of all of us, and we need to think about the planet. We need to start drinking more soy and eating more bugs.
I want to point out that like, okay, so I'm a libertarian, right? And that's one side of the political aisle, right? So when you're a right-leaning libertarian, then you're just a libertarian. When you're a left-leaning libertarian, you're what's called a libertine, and it's actually it's very different. There's some key differences between the two, such as I don't know, the belief in personal responsibility. But anyway,
Map rights matter.
oh Jesus Christ, it's like map rights, like with the Dora the Explorer show. I'm the map. I'm the map. I'm the
Dora. I remember watching that show on Rewind constantly. Dora.
Swiper, no swiping.
That's not going to work on me, Dora. I'm powered by soy.
No, Joe Biden, no sniffing. Joe Biden, no sniffing.
Come over here, little girl. I hear that you smell like a taco.
Yeah, right.
My wife tells me that you're as diverse as a taco from a bodega.
You know, actually, I was thinking back the other day to Dora the Explorer, and because that shit, like, it came out like 20 years ago, I think, or something like that. And I remember seeing it like on the television, back when people actually had televisions. And you know, looking back on it, it's like, why the fuck was there a children's TV show that was trying to teach everyone Spanish? Like, why? Why the fuck? Why?
You know, there's another TV show from slightly after Dora the Explorer that was called Ni Hao Kai Lan. And it was basically the same premise, but it was a little Chinese girl that would teach you how to speak Chinese. And of course, that made a lot more sense.
That is so much better. I'm sure that there wasn't any mild communist propaganda embedded in there either.
Oh, I'm sure there wasn't.
Anyway, so yeah, the number of monkeypox cases continues to climb, and in fact, the federal government has issued a public health emergency over this, and so yeah, now it is a public health emergency. The last two times that I believe that the last two times that a public health emergency was issued over a infectious disease was, of course, the COVID-19, and then the swine flu that happened under Obama. I forget exactly what year that was. It would have been like
2009-ish.
Yeah, 2009-ish. So
I actually remember getting that vaccine back then, honestly.
I don't think my parents ever got me the vaccine for it. But also,
that was the weirdest vaccine because they were literally giving out the vaccine at the freaking local 24-hour gas station.
Oh, well,
it was just a group of people there with like a a medical cooler that looked like a briefcase that was filled with vials of the vaccine, and they were just sitting in the corner of this freaking gas station's dining room, and they were just like two dudes and a chick just in the corner of the fucking dining room. This wasn't cordoned off, or there was no like sterile fields. These people weren't even wearing masks. They were just like chilling in the corner of a fucking gas station dining room, giving out vaccines.
That is the sketchiest vaccine I've ever heard of. Like, you just, like, that's not confidence inspiring. Like, oh yeah, take that needle, put it in my arm. This seems
right in the middle of this gas station with like sizzling pizza a few feet away.
Yeah, that's legit, man. 100% above board. But yeah, so we now have a public health emergency declared over this. I guess that means that it's a big deal. Now, I will point out that as of right now, this is predominantly spread between men who have sex with other men, and well, I should actually, it's not quite men who have sex with other men. It's men who have sex with a lot of other men.
How dare you stop belittling my lifestyle?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's being spread predominantly within those communities. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't spread outside of those communities. It can be passed on through just skin to skin contact. That is something that can happen. It is most easily spread, say, between mucous membranes where lesions can occur, but and oh, Jesus Christ, I've seen some of the pictures of this monkeypox, and they are gruesome. I'll tell you what, like if anyone remembers from way back in the day, Blue Waffle. Some of these pictures are basically on that level. So,
by the way, Blue Waffle was totally an internet hoax. It's not a real thing.
Wait, really?
Yes, and that was Photoshop. It's not a real thing.
Oh shit! Because I remember it being passed around when I was in like middle or high school or something, and it was just the grossest thing that anyone had ever seen.
It was a freaking gross out meme for teenagers, yeah, and that's why you still believe it to this day, probably.
Fuck, dude! Like, man, so much of my life is just turns out to be a lie. You know, it was engineered.
Sort of like a certain modern occurrence that might be somehow tangentially related to what we are talking about right now for entertainment purposes only.
I think I see the direction that you're going with that, and we're not going to continue in that direction. Okay, so...
but monkeypox is very much not a meme, and the lesions are very much real.
Yeah, so, look, you could get the pox from something as simple as a handshake. Of course, I believe that it's much less likely that you're going to get it from a handshake, but it is still possible. So, I guess that, you know, it's something that we should look out for, you know, I suppose. But to be honest, I'm not certain that this is. I mean, we'll see what happens. You know, maybe it'll end up being, you know, a huge fucking thing that kills so many people. But I'm kind of surprised that this was declared a public health emergency. I mean, it kind of seems like maybe going forward, whenever just anything happens that's disease related, they're just gonna start calling it a public health emergency. Just, oh shit, it's the annual flu season, public health emergency. Ah shit, there's a particularly bad rhino and or adenovirus going around. You know, the common cold essentially. Better call it a fucking public health emergency. And you know, I believe, I'm not entirely certain on this, but I believe that if something is a public health emergency, it allows them to bypass some of the FDA regulations and get a drug to market more rapidly. So, if that's the case, I was trying to look into that, and I couldn't find any information saying yes or no in either direction. But if that is the case, then I could see a future where pharmaceutical company X wants to get a drug to market for, I don't know, fibromyalgia. And they don't want to go through 10 years of testing under stringent FDA regulations. And so they go, hey, Mr. Politician, if you could just go ahead and label fibromyalgia as a public health emergency for a month, it would really benefit our company. And I'll tell you what, we have stock options for you. I could totally see that becoming a thing.
Well, then, that would certainly be totally not a thing that you should necessarily worry about, because we can 100% trust pharmaceutical companies and the government, specifically when it comes to vaccinations. Now, there might be listeners that are very distrustful of the government in many other different ways on both the left and right. It's like neoliberal corporatists and big business, and how basically, from what I hear from most of the left these days, that the government is a massive, systemically racist, dog-whistling hellhole that exists for no other purpose than to oppress and repress minorities. But, in this specific instance, they are 100% trustworthy.
Well, look, I mean, the thing is that when you take something as trustworthy as the government, and then you take this other thing that is as trustworthy and just the pinnacle of morality as, say, a big pharmaceutical corporation, and then you have them engage in an incestuous relationship where they're rubbing their dicks together. I'll tell you what, that is the pinnacle of something that I would want to have trust and faith in. I mean, that is just that's going to be about as ethical as God.
I mean, you can't really argue with that.
Just
because if you did try and argue with that, like a man suspiciously dressed like Winnie the Pooh might come strolling down and hit you in the head with a wet noodle. Whoosh.
yeah. Just it's kind of like how for decades now the left has been saying that the military-industrial complex is something that you should always trust and that you should put all of your faith into them. The government pharmaceutical industrial complex, even more so. Just maximum faith. They are trustworthy, and please do not question them, or else. So, but yeah. So monkeypox cases continue to climb. I would assume that I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume that these cases are almost entirely confined to the San Francisco Bay Area and probably the Atlanta area. But I what do I know? I haven't seen any data for that. I'm just assuming.
It's like, well, my advice in all cases is just to avoid California like the plague that it is, regardless of whether or not there is a literal plague. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there's the update about monkeypox. We will continue to cover this story once again. I don't think it's going to end up being a big deal, but we shall see. What the fuck do I know?
Yeah, I think all of these. I need to word this very carefully, and I can't say what I said off the air, but all of these pandemics and responses to these pandemics, moving forward, this is not going to look good historically, to say the very least. This is going to be looked back upon in a very negative light. It just I would say a decade or two.
Well, I mean, look, to put a nice neat bow on this, as we all know, all of the COVID vaccines that were produced by these brave and fearless, literally fearless because zero consequences, pharmaceutical corporations. You know, you got your Pfizer, you got your Moderna, you got your Johnson and Johnson. These vaccinations that were made are 100% safe and effective. They will prevent you from getting sick. They have a track record of preventing you from getting sick. If people who got the vaccines, I don't believe that they contracted Omicron. Definitely not. And they appear to be 100% safe. I don't think that I've seen any evidence of any sort of side effects from these vaccines. So that's just those are facts.
You can trust those true and accurate facts.
Yes, and you better trust them. Okay, so there's that. Now onto the next story. We also have so kind of a smaller story, perhaps not that important, but Alex Jones, a jury sentenced him to pay out just a fuck ton of money to two different families who were affected by Sandy Hook. He's been ordered to pay out a total of $50 million, and there may be more lawsuits coming in the future. So the man is going to have to theoretically pay out a whole bunch of money.
Will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob.
Is that's not something he said, is it?
I'm right.
Yeah, I have not been following the case very closely. I think Breaker, you might have been following it a little bit closer than I did, but what I know is that he's been ordered to pay out about $50 million. I'm not sure if he actually will end up paying out that much, but we'll see. And yeah, that's apparently it was like a non-adversarial trial. Like Alex Jones didn't really get a chance to defend himself, which is a little bit weird, but whatever. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the story.
Yeah, basically the frickin' judge is a known leftist and communist frickin' activist that was constantly berating him in open court on the record numerous times for the dumbest fucking reasons.
Okay, for legal purposes, especially since we're talking about a judge here, the judge is alleged to be a lefty and communist advocate.
No, there is proof. You can look it up.
But he is alleged. He is alleged. You can't say that he is.
Well, you've already misgendered the judge, so fuck you, bigot.
Fuck, you're right. God damn it.
Well, now you're screwed anyway, so you might as well go whole hog. We need to haul him up by their back legs like a big Christmas hog.
I was the other night. I was talking to a
Not threatening a judge. Don't take the. Clip that out of context, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, no, that was for humorous purposes. There, we do not threaten people, and we do not condone violence here on the public tides. So I was talking to a transsexual individual the other night, and they were saying how like they work at a company, and I guess that they had made the transition, and then some people at the company were still referring to them as the wrong pronouns, right? So they used to be a he, now they're a she, and sometimes people still refer to them as a he. And and how this
How
is like
dare you misgender them and dead name them, you abominable bigot.
right. And I was listening to this, and I was keeping an open mind and an open heart, because I was like, wow, this sounds like it could be like a big deal. You have to be at a company, and occasionally you'll get an email and someone will refer to you as a he instead of a she, and that's like super upsetting. And they were going on and on and on and on about this, and how how intense their life struggles are. And they told this story about how they went to their boss, and they were like, you know what? In general, you should just never use gendered pronouns. Not just for me, but for anyone. You should always refer to everyone as a they, because you don't know how they identify. And these terms he and she, they're outdated, and they need to be expunged from the lexicon of English. And they were telling me this, and then what they said was that their boss was like, you know what, you're right, that is something that we should be doing. And they didn't say this exactly, but I assume that everyone clapped at the end. And I just thought that was so moving, and it was a demonstration of the amount, just the sheer struggle that these trans people have to go through. And then I decided to speak up and say, you know what, that sounds horrendous, that sometimes people will use the wrong pronouns on you. I mean, that is a great tragedy. But also there are people that came out as well as being anti Fauci ouchie. And when they came out, those people, they got fired. They got fired from their jobs. Right? Fuck you. Fucking hell.
That's why it's okay. For everyone's edification, here's what you should do. And, you could take this as a joke if you want to. And this is not illegal, by the way, so, because this is the standard. If you feel like, whoever you are out there, if you feel in your heart like you identify as a woman, regardless of what you look like on the outside, what you do is, when you go to get your passport, just tell them that your gender is female. I'm specifically addressing like male audience members and listeners at this point. Tell the person at the passport office that your gender is female. And once you get an F on your passport, whatever state you live in, they have to conform to, because the passports are under federal jurisdiction, they have to conform and make your local ID match your passport. So you get an F on your driver's license. And that's all it takes to become legally, on paper, transgender. Then the next time you go for a job interview, you just show your freaking passport and your driver's license and your legally above board documentation. Say, yeah, I am a masculine presenting trans woman.
It's like when you're
what are they going to say? What are they going to say? No, you're not. How dare you deny my gender? It's like, do you think what even is a woman? Can you define woman? No. You could walk in looking like fucking Grizzly Adams with a coonskin cap and a fucking plaid shirt and fucking jeans and fucking Forester boots on. Doesn't fucking matter. On the paper it says I'm a woman.
Oh my god, you know what? I kind of want to do that now, just to troll the fucking institution. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna be I will not have shaven. I'll have a beard and a mustache, and I'll just be wearing a t-shirt and jeans. I'll look like a fucking regular guy, and I'll go, yeah, no, I'm a girl.
I'm a masculine presenting trans woman. Now I still use male pronouns, and I'm not gonna start a bunch of hoo-ha about shit. It's But I'm trans. On the inside, I identify as a woman.
I believe
And you know what that is? That's immediately, there's no burden of proof that the state can hold against you.
yeah, I didn't,
Literally none.
didn't Lauren Southern do that in Canada? She officially declared herself to be a man, and she is legally Lauren Southern is legally a man.
I don't know if she legally put it on her paper or if it was just a troll or
No,
not.
she did. She she got her I don't know how they do shit in Canada. I mean, I believe that they don't even have real money. They just use monopoly money. So I don't know how official it is, but yeah, she got her gender legally changed to male. Lauren Southern is legally a boy.
And that's your secret to breaking the system. Like all the men out there that are having trouble getting a job, just put F on your driver's license. Guaranteed. You get put into the special trans super minority hot shoe. And not only will you get a job, you'll get like several fucking interviews in the course of 1 week, and you'll get fucking promoted immediately if you're already in a job. There's no downside.
Holy shit, dude! It's like you get instant like plus 100 diversity points. Fuck.
Yeah, it's like a speed run strategy in a video game. It's like when you no clip through the wall and you get to the final boss on level 1.
It's an exploit. Just like this is the kind of shit that the spiffing Brit would recommend. Let's go.
The regulations around transgender identity are perfectly sound and lawfully ironclad, with no exploits whatsoever.
It's perfectly balanced.
But anyway, back to Alex Jones. Yeah. Aside from the judge allegedly being a left-wing, hardline political activist, there was also a problem with one of Alex Jones's multiple lawyers accidentally, quote-unquote, gave the prosecuting attorney, like, all of their phone records that they had communications with Alex Jones for the past, like, several fucking years.
Oh, that sounds
So
like,
like,
that sounds like a violation
whoopsie.
of attorney-client privilege if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, it basically is. So now I don't know how this is all going to shake out in the end. Only time will tell. But here's what I think is going to happen. That being the case, like Alex Jones getting prejudiced in open court by the judge constantly, I don't know how much weight that's going to pull because judges have so much fucking discretion. But the lawyer thing is like, that's like his ace in the hole that no one expected to happen. Now, I guarantee you the leftoid media are going to start saying it's like, it was actually a criminal conspiracy he had with that lawyer to make it look like he'd breached his privilege. Like, yeah, that lawyer's going to put his bar card on the line for fucking Alex Jones. Yeah, right, motherfucker. Now who's the conspiracy theorist? But anyway, what's going to happen is Alex Jones is going to get that $50-ish million mostly back from the pending malpractice suit that he has, like, basically ironclad proof that the attorney did this. So that attorney's malpractice insurance is going to pay most, if not all, of Alex Jones's fucking judgment. So Alex Jones, if for all intents and purposes, even though he technically quote-unquote lost, there's still, like, appeal processes. And let's say that those lose too, but the fucking malpractice is like the ace in the hole. It's like, he's going to be out very little, if any, money from the actual judgment in the end. So, I'm ready. I'm here. I'm a human. This is what we look like. This is what we act like. This is what I am. I'm a throwback. I've got 5 human liberty. I'm setting fires everywhere, and humans are turning on all over this earth.
Very, very good. Well, yeah, we will see. I guess what happens with the Alex Jones case. I guess there might be more lawsuits incoming. But I don't know if I were to take a guess, and this is just a complete guess. My guess would be that at the end of the day, Alex Jones is not going to pay $50 million. That's my bet. That's it. I'm not saying I'm right. That's my bet.
I think, like, in the best case scenario, he could get it overturned on appeal because one, his lawyer fucked up, and two, the open prejudice of the frickin' judge in the courtroom. But the lawyer fucking up is like the main linchpin of this. Like, he might even get the whole thing overturned on appeal, just because the lawyer fucked up.
Yeah, or like even if he can't get an appeal, I think that there are financial wizardry ways around having to give someone $50 million. I don't really know these things in depth because I've never had $50 million and I've never had to pay anyone $50 million. But I've heard that there are money finagling ways to potentially just avoid it. I wouldn't know, but yeah, that's what I've heard.
Only time will tell. Only time will tell.
So I as another this is a little bit off topic, but so there was a case that came out in the Supreme Court recently, and I guess that this officer, they didn't read an individual that they were arresting. They didn't read them their Miranda rights, and I guess that that person that didn't get read their rights, they tried to sue the police officer. And then the Supreme Court, they said, yeah, you can't sue the police officer. They have immunity because they're police officers. And
qualified immunity, technically.
Right. And so I was talking to this lefty, and they brought this up, and they said, you know what? And this is how they started it off. They said, you know what? Did you know that that in America, the Supreme Court just said that you don't have to be read your Miranda rights? Yeah, the Supreme Court literally just decided this. This Supreme Court is so fucking fascist that literally they declared that you no longer have to be read your rights when you're getting arrested. And I was like, wait, really? They were like, yeah. It's like, oh, wow, okay. I mean, do you have like an article for that or whatever? Like, I haven't heard that shit. And so they started reading me out a fucking like Washington Post, overview of what the case was, and I was like, whoa, hold on there. The Supreme Court is not saying that you no longer have to read someone their Miranda rights. The Supreme Court is it's actually quite boring. They're upholding the fact that you can't sue the police officer, right? Now, if you're not read your Miranda rights, number one, your case is going to be thrown out. It like 99% of the time. Like you could be driving around with fucking 15 kilograms of cocaine in the trunk of your car. And if a cop doesn't read you your Miranda rights, your case is going to get thrown out. Unfortunately, your cocaine will probably get thrown out as well, so that kind of sucks. But no, I mean like you're they didn't undergo the proper protocol. Ergo, your case is going to most likely be thrown out.
We do not endorse drug trafficking on the public space.
No, we don't. I'm just saying if well, I don't know. Maybe you're Hunter Biden. Maybe the 15 kilos of cocaine is just for you because it's a Saturday night.
In that case, you just call your father and you get off the hook.
Right, exactly. But I was like, look, that's the all that's saying is that police have immunity from being sued, and it makes sense because actually what you do is you sue the state. You don't sue the individual officer. It seems actually very important for an officer to be able to like do his job that he is not able to get sued, right? And
yeah, if police officers making like roughly $50,000 to $60,000 a year, if they could just blanketly be sued by anyone they ever arrested, that would create like a two-tiered system, even more stark of a contrast than we have now, where police simply wouldn't arrest rich people because okay, that's a multimillionaire and I make $60,000 a year. They're gonna sue me and destroy me. I'm not even gonna touch them.
Well, right, exactly. I mean, I like it makes no sense for a police officer to not have immunity. And here I was talking to this lefty.
And that means Onision could never be arrested, no matter how much he abused his child.
Oh, isn't that sweet? But I was talking to this lefty, and they were like, no, you should be able to sue the individual because you know what? The government, they didn't do anything bad. It was just the individual cop that did something bad, which is why you should be able to sue the cop. And I'm like, holy shit, is this what like the lefty perspective is at this point? Because this person had previously said that that if you give someone COVID, it's equivalent to aiming a gun at someone and pulling the trigger. And that's why, in the same way that the police are there to, prevent murders, the government should be there to prevent COVID spreading, and that's why it is a legitimate mandate of the government to force people to get vaccinated or whatever. And now they're saying, like, no, actually, the government is trying to do a good job. It was just one rogue police officer. And, you should trust the government. You shouldn't sue the government. You should sue the individual who did the thing. Okay, number one, that's all fucking nutty. And I don't know when it is that the fucking left decided that they... Because I fucking remember being on the left, like, when the Bush administration was doing its shit. And I was like, fuck the government. The government is probably not that great. I don't know when it is that the left decided they're just like super pro corporation, super pro just like whatever the government says. I don't know when that change happened. I think it was under the Obama administration. But also, here's the thing. Who gave that cop a gun and a badge and said, you are now a representative of the state, we give you power in the name of the sovereignty of the state? Who is it that gave that individual the fucking gun and the badge? It was the state. Ultimately, the responsibility, if the cop fucks up, is on the state. Now, if there was just some random asshole on the street that was walking around with a gun and a pair of handcuffs, and he was just operating alone, and he points a gun at you, and then he puts the fucking the handcuffs around you and like forces you to the ground just for funsies, yes, you should be able to sue that person, and he should probably go to jail for assault, right? Unless he's making a citizen's arrest, depending on where you are, whatever. But if there's a difference between just a random asshole on the street and a cop is operating under the authority of the state, which means that if the cop does something untowards, like not read you your Miranda rights, that is the responsibility of the state. The state ultimately has to take responsibilities for that, so sue the state. You don't sue the individual cop. It makes no fucking goddamn sense. Now, if there is, say, a murder trial, like in the George Floyd instance, then yes, the individual can go to jail. I'm not exactly sure that I agree with the verdict of that case, but when it comes to suing someone, no, you cannot sue the police officer. You sue the government. It makes no goddamn sense, and I will fucking debate anyone on this one. It doesn't follow. It's dumb, and there are people on the left that believe this shit.
Well then, there you go.
Well,
and so far as like all this police hoodoo, it's like I just said a minute ago. if you could sue police officers, it would create a two-tier justice system where no rich people would ever be arrested again, out of fear for getting fucking sued into oblivion, which any blue-collar working stiff cop would easily be sued into oblivion by. Just imagine if they went to arrest Onision one of these days, God willing, for something that he inevitably does that is so far beyond the pale that it no longer be ignored. None of the police officers would want to sue him, would want to arrest him because this guy is like a YouTube gazillionaire. He's gonna sue us all into oblivion. We're all gonna lose our jobs. Fuck that.
No, it like that's an obvious consequence, right? You would never sue anyone that has access to a good. Sorry, you would never arrest anyone that has access to a good lawyer. You just wouldn't do it. This is the thing, man. Like,
and that would mean the politicians would basically be really above the law, even more so than they are now, and everyone would know it, and the left would complain exponentially more about that, but conveniently overlook it was their fucking shit that started it. Like, if the left got their way on this about being able to sue police officers, they would completely forget that it was them that did that, and then they would complain about all these freaking oligarch class that weren't being properly put under the penalty of law for whatever fucking reasons they could pull out of their ass. Be they total fabrications and Trump derangement syndrome-esque moments of their leftoid brains, or actual legitimate crimes these people might be committing knowing they can't be arrested because they're millionaires and they could sue the cop into oblivion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if they actually did this, if they actually, for whatever reason, got this policy into law, this is what would happen. Donald Trump could actually go out onto Fifth Avenue and just start shooting people with a fucking AK-47, and the police would not be inclined to arrest him. They would just look at it.
I finally had it, America. I can't take it anymore. There's too much fucking bullshit. There's gonna be so much death and destruction. You won't believe it. You're gonna die so much you're gonna get tired of dying. Believe me.
No, but that's what they would get from this policy. Someone as wealthy as Donald Trump could just start murdering people, and the police would go, "Oh, I'm not touching that one. That guy has more money than God. He would ruin my life." Yeah. See, that's the thing that I get with talking with a lot of lefties. They have a gut feeling about something. They're like, I don't like this, and they don't stop to think, if I actually got my way, what would be the consequences of that? Like, you don't even have to think like 10 steps ahead. You have to think like one step ahead. Like, okay, you get your way, what happens then? Oftentimes they don't think about it. They just say, I don't like this, get rid of it. And then that's as far as their thinking goes. I've been I've been talking to the left a lot recently, and it's so it's so difficult to talk to them. I was also talking to some vegans the other night. Some of those like super hardcore vegans, and so it was so fucking weird. I was talking to this vegan, and they were like, yeah, you shouldn't eat animals. And I was like, okay, right. Cool. Yeah, you shouldn't eat animals. I get it, because like they're a life form. And they're like, yeah, exactly. And I was like, okay, so you're pro-life then, right? You're like anti-abortion. And they were like, what? No. Abortion's like totally chill. I'm like, wait, but isn't that like a life? And they're like, no, it's that doesn't count. I'm like, okay, well, all right, sure. My position is that it shouldn't really count as a life until like maybe like 2 weeks in, when the blastocyst implants into the uterine wall. Like, okay, I can kind of understand that. So like maybe you're someone who's like, okay, before the first trimester you can do an abortion, but after that, no. And they're like, no, I think abortion should be allowed at any point. I was like, wait, okay, so you're telling me that a minute before the baby is about to be delivered, you can just kill it? They're like, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, so there's like is there some sort of like magical property of the birth canal, of the vagina, that imbues the infant with human rights? So when they're in the womb, they don't have rights, and then they pass through this golden magical birth canal, and it God imbues it with fucking natural and human rights, and then on the other end it gets them, and they're like, well, no, not exactly, but I mean, yeah, kind of, and and this is a vegan who says that you're not allowed to fucking eat fish or a fucking mussel or a clam or like they would probably be against eating fucking crickets. And they're saying, yeah, a minute before the baby comes out of the fucking birth canal, you can just murder it because they have to be pro-abortion. There is something about that doesn't fucking follow. It's not logical.
Well, like I told you last time, it's like, this isn't derived from fucking logic. This is just... These are the useful idiot class of pure power pragmatists. Whenever these people, now that they're in power, my free speech and all that fucking bullshit doesn't matter anymore. It's just like, they've just been told for years that abortion good by their chosen political talking head on the TV box. They've got their fucking NPC updates, and they're just going to keep saying abortion good, regardless of how many contradictions, because this is not a holistic philosophical or religious worldview you're talking about here. This is just a weird, perverse, Lovecraftian patchwork entity that looks like Frankenstein on meth, that is just all these disparate parts. They even shoved some fucking animal parts onto the goddamn thing, and it's just shambling along, exuding the fucking talking points from its face hole.
I mean, I don't understand how it is that, like, I don't understand how it is that you can actually have those two ideas inside of your head at the same time. You can't eat a bug because that's anti-vegan. All animal life is sacred. But when it comes to a baby, a minute from being born, yeah, just murder it. Yeah, whatever. What I should have done is I should have asked them about animal testing on fetuses, because in science they do animal testing on fetuses. What I should have done is I should have asked them, how do you feel about animal testing on fetuses, fetal animals? Because something tells me that the vegan would have been like, oh no, we can't. It's immoral to do scientific testing on animal fetuses. Something tells me that they would have said, yeah, that's immoral. But yeah, no, when it comes to a human child, fucking kill it.
You know what else? I remember this particular group of vegans that you're talking about because I interacted with another person that also dealt with him before. You know what else those people believe? They actually believe that technically cannibalism is ethical. You can actually eat other humans.
Are humans not an animal?
Well, you see, the thing of it is, if the other human consents to being eaten, you can then eat them.
Oh, okay. Right. And an animal cannot consent.
You know what else an animal can't consent to? Being your fucking pet?
These people are probably members of PETA, and I believe it's the stance of PETA that having pets is unethical. They consider it to be slavery. Yeah, I have 2 cats. I don't think that they want to go onto the streets. I think that they're very happy just sitting around and lounging in my apartment.
You know what this means? This means that Alex Jones can really eat that leftist ass like corn on the cob. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. Ready? And yes, he really did say that. By the way, you could look it up.
So the only thing that actually can tie all of these ideas together and make them make any sort of sense at all is that it's not that these people are against the murdering of animals. Because I mean, human beings are animals after all. No. They're just anti-human, right? They hate humans. They're anti-natalist. They don't want humans to reproduce. They just hate humans, and they want less humans to exist. In fact, maybe they want no humans to exist. I'm not really sure, but I think
it's because they're bio-Leninist losers. That's why.
Wait, what did you say? Bio-Leninist?
Yeah, if you don't know bio-Leninism, basically bio-Leninism is get the most physically, mentally degenerate hunchback of Notre Dame looking motherfuckers you can, and they'll be the highest caliber of useful idiot commie soldiers because they literally have nothing else. Like, no other system that believes in anything remotely resembling meritocracy will give a shit if fucking Quasimodo can get his ass to a productive line of work. But you remember the movie 300 where Xerxes says to that mutated Spartan guy, it's like, all of this can be yours if you but kneel to me and tell me where the army's positions are. That's bio-Leninism.
Ah, I see. Yeah, I mean that I think that's definitely part of it, but I think that they're just look, I've said this before, but I think that so this patchwork of ideology from the left, where you have so many things that contradict with so many things, and it like you said, it's like a Frankenstein amalgamation of various bizarre ideas. There is one uniting principle, one uniting factor in all of these ideas, and that is that it is anti-human. It is anti-natalist. It wants the human population to decline or go extinct. It does not want you to have children. It doesn't want anyone to have children. It wants
there's another type of fundamentalist vegan that does exist. They're called Jain Buddhists. But the thing about Jain Buddhists is they would also feel very strongly about abortion because to them, literally all life is sacred, and they would probably take that as a form of murder as well.
See, that's logically consistent. That's something that makes sense.
And it's an actual religious, philosophically backed worldview that's cohesive and internally consistent. And you look at the left, it's just like abortion good, eating animal bad. It's all just these weird amalgamated parts jammed together in this fucking Frankenstein monster.
Right. Whereas I think that on the overall, on the right, you see people take the opposite opinion, but it does make sense, right? So on the right, you can say, okay, look, I want to eat meat. I want to be able to kill deer and fucking eat the flesh of the deer, and I want to be anti-abortion. I want to be pro-life. Now, that's the opposite of what the left is saying, but it actually makes sense when the right says it, because the right will say, oh yeah, I give moral consideration to humans and not to animals. Humans are above animals, so I give a different ethical and moral consideration to them, right? So that makes sense. It makes sense for humans to go, oh, humans are special, because we're humans. We are this species. We deal with human affairs. We make human beings be special. And we kind of have to do that, because like we have intent, we have willpower, we have like complex thinking, right? It makes sense to delineate a human from an animal. Now, the only way that you can actually make the inverse of that make sense is you say, okay, I give ethical and moral considerations to animals, but not to people. And that's insane. That's like, what the fuck? The whole thing breaks down.
Well, you know why they're anti-human? It's because, like I said, the bio-Leninist losers have lived their whole frickin' lives being treated like shit by other humans. So the second they have anything that remotely resembles a form of power that they can utilize over the heads of other people, they will do it and turn it up to 150% and break off the knob and just grind it in until the fucking wheels fall off. Because they literally do hate humans, because all of their fucking life has been pain, misery, suffering at the head of other humans the way they fucking see it. And personal accountability and responsibility means jack shit to them. They're just like, destroy the bullies. Destroy them all. Lord, what should I do? Destroy the child. Corrupt them all.
And you know what? These are the people who voted for Biden because they want to see more human suffering and misery. They hate human
Biden,
beings.
the ultimate bio-Leninist.
Yeah, exactly. Because you know what? He ran on a promise to maximize human misery and suffering, and you know what? He did it. And so I'm sure that all these vegans will be voting for Biden again, because fucking A, he did everything that they wanted him to do.
You know the memes of those like soy-faced, gaping-mouth Reddit moderators, like neckbeards and scruffy-faced, degenerate-looking motherfuckers?
Right.
That's the type of people that are anti-human. I watched a video by Moon, if you want to look up the channel Moon, Moon on YouTube, that talked about why do all Reddit moderators look like this? And he goes in depth as like this specific type of archetypal person is basically the degenerate basement-dwelling loser that has nothing better to do than spend all of their time being a Reddit moderator or whatever fucking online degenerate site that you could find. And that's all they fucking do all day. They're the most petty, spiteful, vindictive, hateful fucking people. You've dealt with freaking mods, like the epic internet mods in the chat rooms and shit. Very recently, I remember you told me something how you got banned from a freaking server on Discord.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, so I got banned from I forget the exact name, just the politics server. And this is why, right? I was saying there that you know what? The Planned Parenthood clinics are specifically set up in predominantly African American neighborhoods. And if my plan was to basically try to limit the number of African Americans that existed as a population in America, then Planned Parenthood would be a really excellent vehicle for me to try to do a genocide, right? And then they said, oh, we're going to ban you because that is advocating for genocide. I'm sorry, what? I was specifically saying, no. I'm against all of this. I do not believe that any human or group of humans should be meddling in the reproductive affairs of another human or group of humans. I am specifically super duper anti like any form of genocide, because I believe that is up to the sole discretion of nature, and it is not up to man. Nature will decide who reproduces and who doesn't, who survives and who doesn't. It is folly for a human to think that they're smarter than nature and that they should decide these things, that they should take natural selection over, and they should control this kind of shit. That is basically like the most evil thing that a human being can do. And I said all of this, and they banned me because I guess they decided that I was promoting genocide for some fucking reason, because, well, I think they were trying to get rid of me. But yeah.
And if you equated Planned Parenthood to like a genocidal organization, and Planned Parenthood is something that they necessarily have to support, so instead of like reconciling that systemic contradiction, they just do the old Stalinist tactic: no person, no problem.
Yeah. Good point. Actually, very effective strategy. Yeah. Look, it doesn't matter if your ideas are internally consistent. If you have the power to ban people and make them shut up, then it doesn't matter if your ideas are internally consistent.
Yeah, the truth doesn't matter anymore. It's like, I guess since we're going into the second half of the show, did you have any more news things to bring up?
No, I don't.
This would be like a good time to go into this, and you were asking me if I had anything specific to talk about. Well, this would probably be one of those specific kinds of things I could talk about for a while to close out the show with.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
empirical truth doesn't matter anymore. What actually matters now is mythology. The world has kind of round robin back to a pre-modernist type age where a bunch of these fractured little splinter groups with all these disparate ideologies on both the left and the right, they both do this. You just see it from the left more often because they're the ones with the censorship lever and they're the loudest and they're the most in power right now, so you see it most from them. There was a time in history where you would see, like, you remember the old hypocrisy days of the evangelical right, where the loudest motherfucker that condemned things like homosexuality the most turned out to be having orgies in gay bathhouses? Remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah. Because the truth didn't matter. All that mattered was that he had the power to put that message into the world and be politically anti-gay, even though he himself was a massive flamer. But the thing about doing that from a Christian perspective is that Christianity still has like very concrete roots and dogma and doctrine around things like that. So if the hypocrisy was exposed for an evangelical, it would be rightly called out by other evangelicals, like, you were a big flamer the whole time, like, you were a hypocrite and we denounce you now because you did the thing. The left doesn't have those concrete roots. So if a leftist is caught like Hillary Clinton's famous "they all look alike" joke that she did back in 2016, if you remember that, or her kissing freaking Larry Bird, the KKK Klansman, like, none of those things fucking matter that she kissed a freaking KKK Klansman or made that and "they all look alike" joke, or referred to black criminals back in the 90s as quote-unquote super predators. Yeah, super predators. And Biden was one of the ones that actually put that bill in that had the super predator language in it, weirdly enough. You see, that doesn't matter. Now he's saying Black Lives Matter after he was saying super predators like 20, 30 years ago. You can't. The left doesn't have the tools to call out that contradiction because they're just always in this unbounded mythological fucking whirlwind where the soup of the day is all that's important as long as you have the power. The second that their power becomes in question, you'll notice. Remember around the Roe v. Wade repeal that happened recently? The left suddenly, after several years of wanting to de-anonymize the internet and try and push through things that in order to log on to the internet at all, you would have to show some type of ID with your real name and all this.
Fuck that shit.
After Roe v. Wade was repealed, though, a funny thing happened where they then started becoming very concerned about VPN companies and how encrypted and secure the data and communication over a VPN was. And the reason for that was, if a woman wants to plan an abortion in a state where abortion might be totally illegal and equatable to murder, we want to make sure they can do it through an encrypted channel. So all of a sudden, internet anonymity became front and center instantaneously, a fucking total 180, right when the Roe v. Wade shit happened.
Yeah. See, here's like it's a question that I have. It's something that has always kind of confused me because I am a person, and I think there's a lot of people out there like this, that they like to have a logical consistency in their beliefs and their ideas. If idea A contradicts idea B, then I feel very uneasy holding both ideas inside my head. I'm like, I have to solve this inconsistency because I can't, like, it would bother me. It would be like a metaphorical itch inside my brain that I would feel compelled to scratch and scratch and scratch at until it's resolved. I can't just leave that on the table and go, yeah, okay, idea A and B, they don't make a lot of sense together, but I believe both of them. I think that's the case with a lot of people, but I guess that there are some people that it doesn't bother them. They don't feel the itch.
I think one of the main reasons for that is like because we're re-entering a mythological age, and the age of like modernist empirical truth and logical consistency is actually leaving. This is actually part of the Promethean tide cycle. It's the name of the show. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Every time you push the like button, you're re-anchoring the grand binding mythos of humanity back to something that can hopefully be consistent and carry humanity into the future. But anyway.
That's the name of the show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is what the Promethean tides, when I came up with the name, the kind of thing I was thinking about, where we're re-entering a mythological age, but the mythology isn't settled yet. We have this turbulent, chaotic soup where all of these systemic contradictions just whirl around with these, like, Lovecraftian primordial chaos demons, Frankenstein amalgamations that don't make any sense. They're eldritch abominations shambling around. And we need to keep driving forward until this reaches like some type of terminal impasse where the only thing that can survive are consistent creatures that fit into archetypal forms. Similar to like something along the lines of evolution, where in early evolution there was all these strategies being tried and all these freaking species died out really fucking quick until like certain key strategies for whatever reason emerged through mutations, and it's like, well, this strategy is consistent over time, and it leads to consistent replication over long periods of time, and that's the things that matter. The things that fall into these niches that they have consistent replication over time, whether it's a worm or a roach or a fish or name any creature you want, they fill a specific niche with a specific strategy and a specific morphology that leads to them replicating over long periods of time. And the same is true with the ideologies, where all these ideologies with these systemic contradictions that collapse under their own weight, over enough time, they're not going to endure over very long historical and civilizational timescales. What is going to endure is things like the reemergence of mythological cores, like Christianity, for example. Love it or hate it, it's consistent over time and leads to more humans replicating that pass on the mimetic of Christianity consistently over time. It's like memes are like a meta replicator where the seat of their replication is contained in the genetic replicator, so they can't reproduce on their own, but they can piggyback off of other humans. Now, these ideas that lead you to be a self-terminating, suicidal fucking maniac that believes in post-birth abortions, they're not going to do that over time. They're simply not going to do that.
Right. So I guess this is kind of like a Cambrian explosion of ideas, and most of them will go extinct. Some of them might survive, but most of them inevitably are a dead end.
Yeah, and right now we're at the waning of the tide. Like the Promethean tide, the waning of the tide is like going out, and all the low tide, like all the strange underwater eldritch abominable creatures are now exposed, wiggling around and screeching on the sand. And whatever tide comes back is going to conceal all those things. It's not going to wash them away or destroy them. There's going to be a prevailing tide that comes back and freshens everything up and lasts for a certain amount of time until the cycle repeats.
Oh, okay. So this is the what is it? This is similar to the Strauss-Hausen generational theory, where it's like we're at the fourth turning right now, something like that.
Yeah, basically.
The
Kali Yuga cycle. You got to read your moldy butt, Lord Moldy Butt. I don't. Well, you can still mention his name on YouTube. Mencius Molebug.
I'm not familiar.
He's basically like a neo-reactionary type of guy. He's actually gaining traction in like mainstream press. Like mainstream news outlets are now starting to talk about like alternative right-wing ideas, not necessarily the dreaded alt-right. Because let's face it, the frickin' alt-right were a bunch of magic white people spurgatrons.
Right? Yeah. Oh, God. I remember back in the day they used to be more popular, and I would argue with them, and yeah, their idea was well, you see, white people are just like, for whatever reason, the best, and that's my entire philosophical paradigm. And it was
Okay, I'll tell you something. I'll give you a perspective on that you might not have thought about. Like any type of racially supremacist ideology, whether it's white, black, Asian, whatever, if that's the core of it, it's actually overly egalitarian. Now, you might think, it's like, how is a racially supremacist ideology overly egalitarian? Well, consider, it's like, let's say that we were in some type of racial supremacist world. I won't name specific races for obvious reasons, but for the sake of this argument, let's just suppose. And you walk around and you see another person of your race. And that's always going to be like a free bingo spot. It's sort of like an ideological socialism, where this other person similar to my race, no matter how bad they're acting and how much of a garbage fucking human they are, they're always going to get those free bingo points of being your same race, and you're not going to criticize them as stringently as you would of someone of a different race that was probably acting twice as good as that person of your same race is, or whatever the threshold is going to be. Dumber people are going to have like a really wonky fucking threshold where it's like, no matter what the person of my race is doing, my race is the good race and the supreme race, and my race could do no wrong because we all shit apple pie. That is like a type of concealed, insidious egalitarianism.
I mean, yeah, I guess I can see how I I can see the argument there. Yeah.
And then you'd look at fucking toothless redneck hillbilly and Thomas Sowell standing side by side. And a white supremacist would think that obviously that toothless redneck hillbilly with a face full of swastika tattoos is a far better person than that filthy you-know-what over there.
Right. Yeah. See, this is the part of it where I just I think it contradicts with what reality is, right? Because if you look at if you look at like American politics, right? And the like the alt-right, they're you know, like you and me, they're not a big fan of the left, and so, you know, at least they got that going for them, I suppose. But they don't like the left, and yet they don't seem to realize that actually a lot of the weird LGBTQ stuff, a lot of the like communist stuff, a lot of the diversity is our strength stuff, all of this is actually being advocated for by a bunch of soy addicted white people. They don't seem to understand that actually, I mean, when it comes to all of the things that they hate in the world, their fellow member of their race is also responsible for that shit. Like,
Well, your ability to actually see that empirical reality would be greatly diminished under a racially supremacist society.
Yes, because I believe that
and you would actually be called out for saying that and be chastised for saying that, even if it's true.
Well, right, because I believe that their retort, because I've spent years debating these people as well. I believe that their retort would be, well, that is a consequence of a Semitic influence. It all comes back to the influence of the Semitic people. And so no matter what the ill is, no matter what the wrong is, there is one other group of people that is the source of all of it.
There always has to be this eternal us versus them, no matter what it is. Now, black supremacists do this with the magic white man that apparently has magical powers to turn all government institutions into these clandestine, like dog whistling, cipher coded that would make fucking the Da Vinci Code motherfucker blush level of coded language you would need to do this. So, to the black supremacists that think the white man is all against him all the fucking time in every facet of society, he ends up fucking deifying the white man and turning them into this transcendental godlike entity that is capable of literally controlling all aspects of reality like they're in the fucking Matrix.
Oh, you know what? Actually, when the feminists, they're not as popular anymore, but under feminism,
the patriarchy.
It was the patriarchy, and in fact, even if a woman was in charge, she could still be part of the patriarchy because she had internalized misogyny. So even another woman could be a representative of the patriarchy under these ideas.
And there's a lot more off-color terms for people of different groups that I don't think we can mention on YouTube.
No, certainly not. But
everyone knows what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. No. These ideas where it's just, I mean, they're very simplistic, and it just goes, well, my group good. In group good, out group bad, and that's when you boil it down. That's all it is, and it pops up all the time. You can see it in the alt-right. You can see this in the Black Israelites. You can see this in feminism. You can see this in I mean, within America, those are the main ones. But throughout the world, it pops up all the time. It's just in group good, out group bad.
You know what? This is why you often hear me make these types of arguments. But in all honesty, all jokes aside, I think the Chinese. Do you remember the movie Blade Runner? Where in the Blade Runner future, like
the original
look out
one
into this
with Harrison Ford as the lead,
yeah, the Harrison Ford one. You'd look out into this cityscape, this neon metropolis, and all the advertisements were in Chinese.
Are you sure? I think they might have been Japanese. I'm not. I actually don't know.
I'm fairly certain it was Chinese, but if someone wants to correct me on that,
you might be right. You might be right. Yeah.
But anyway, it's like. That's why I think, like, well, not just because of that reason, but a country like China, love them or hate them, like CCP warts and all, they still have that binding mythos, and they're a massive nuclear superpower and economic powerhouse, and they still have a binding mythos. Now,
yeah, but they're super racial supremacists. Like, the Han Chinese are like the best group in China is the Han Chinese.
But the thing about that is they have a way of mitigating that's much more ancient and well articulated than what we do in the West. Because in the Western world, this idea of quote unquote white people is a fucking socialist labor union invention nonsense term that means fucking jack shit. What it was in the early 1900s of America, the frickin' labor unions wanted to consolidate, and you had the Irish, the Italians, the Germans, the Polish, the Jews, whoever frickin' else, all the frickin' different people. There's just like, fuck it, just call them white. Because we need to consolidate power because it's a Marxist, socialist power tactic where you all act as like this single fucking collectivist body. That's why the term white exists. Like in Europe, go to freaking Europe. Like, ask a random English person what their opinion of the French is. Ask a random Frenchman what their opinion of the Germans are. Ask a random German their opinion on any other European person ever.
On the fucking Slavs. Nobody in Europe likes the Slavs.
Yeah, in Europe, they're all like atomized freaking countries with distinct cultures and languages and backgrounds and ethnicities, and to this day the English and the freaking Irish, they're on the same fucking island and they still don't get along for many different reasons. Some political, some ideological. It's a fucking mess over there. But over here they would just be white people. Do you see how fucking stupid this is?
Oh yeah, it's incredibly stupid, and speaking for myself, as someone who has zero German ancestry, fuck the Germans. I've said that before. I'll say it again. Fuck the Germans.
Now the difference is a country like China. They've all been Chinese for thousands of years, and they've all been dealing with each other, and they've worked out many different intricate systems to mitigate this. Now, there are racially supremacists like Han Chinese #1. That is a thing, but it doesn't negatively affect them like it does your average bog standard maggot-minded fucking white supremacist that you encounter so much on the freaking internet these days. And the reason it doesn't affect them is because they've mitigated that over time with things like class and family. Like, what family are you from? What class are you from? And you might be like Han Chinese, like two Han Chinese people look at each other, and one's wearing a suit and one's wearing overalls. They know the differences between each other. And they don't automatically think, well, you're Chinese, you're automatically good. There's like, no, I know what I am and I know what you are. And I know my place and you know your place.
Well, yeah. I guess that is something that would be born out of I guess long-term, centuries-long interactions between different groups of people that evolved naturally and that wasn't just imposed by a political ideology.
Yeah, and like 300 years ago in Europe, if your Anglo-Saxon ass was walking along and you saw like a 6'5" fucking Nord, you would be like, "What's this fucking Nord doing over here? Am I about to get my head chopped off by this freaking Nord?"
For a long time, the Nordic people were actually relatively scary. Nowadays, particularly the Swedish, they're just the softies of Europe. I'll tell you what. But back in the day, they were a little bit harder. They ran a little bit harder.
The thing of that is the religion tempered them, and that's a whole other can of worms, like the Nietzschean death of God thing that kind of was one of the cornerstones that fucked up Europe majorly, and they technically never recovered from it.
You're saying that basically the import of Christianity
the Christianity, like the commonality of the religion and a very specific type of religion that doesn't explicitly reward you for being warlike and adversarial, and instead rewards faith, hope, charity, and a bunch of other virtues that don't lend themselves to being an axe-wielding maniac.
See, this is the thing, right? Like, I've been saying this for a while. It's like, okay, democracy works in America. But just because democracy works in America doesn't mean that democracy is going to work in all places at all times. And actually, I should rephrase that. America is not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic with some democratic factors inside of it. But that system, it doesn't necessarily work in all places in the world. Different places have different cultures. They have to meet different standards in order to survive. In the same way that, like, being really good at dealing with snow is good if you live up north, but it's less advantageous if you live in Saudi Arabia, for instance. There are certain political...
And also dealing with frickin' swampy, wet, constantly cold and melancholic climates like the frickin' England and Scotland and Ireland and that type of boggy, rainy, always overcast sky. The humidity is always high and the temperature is always like relatively cool. There are certain people around the world that they would get pneumonia really quick living like that.
And for myself, that's actually my favorite type of weather in the entire world, mostly because that's where my ancestors came from. But there are certain political ideologies that work well in some places, and they don't work well in others. And the same goes for religion, right? I think that maybe Christianity was good for certain groups of people, but for the Scandinavians, maybe it ended up kind of pussifying them, and maybe it was actually ended up being a worse thing for them. In the same way that maybe Christianity isn't the best thing for people in China. Maybe Eastern Orthodox version of Christianity wouldn't work out the best in Britain. Maybe Buddhism doesn't really make a lot of sense or isn't very competitive in America. Like, all of these ideas, all of these strategies of trying to live your life, be them philosophical, religious, or just, general competitive strategies, they work in some environments and they don't work in others. One would expect this just from, a basic understanding of ecology, right? Like a bug that is like a butterfly, that is really fucking good at living in a swamp region may not do that well when living in a highly forested region, right? Like these are just so. Basically, that is to say that whatever ideology you have, it may make a lot of sense to you, and it may make a lot of sense to other people, but that doesn't mean that your ideology is universally supreme. It is always environmentally dependent. Always.
Yeah, just like the Lovecraftian low tide dwellers all come out and flourish when the tide goes low. And they all get buried back under the sea when the tide goes high. The one consistent, unchanging factor of that is the tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain that in the famous words of Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah. No, it's impossible.
There was a lot of wisdom in that was lost on his interlocutor at the time, and a lot of people. That was like one of those classic epic atheists. What was his name? David Silverman, the atheist they was talking to. There's actually a lot of wisdom in that. The tide goes in, the tide goes out. You can't really pin down the absolute machinations of nature. Like, you are a subject of the frickin' tides, and the low tide dwellers will all come out and play. All the frickin' scavenger birds will pick off the clams and the sea worms and bugs. And then when the tide goes up, a bunch of other different creatures will come out and flourish. And this is all an eternal fucking waxing and waning cycle that is the eternal struggle that will go on in perpetuity forever.
Until you brought it up, I had never actually thought about that quote, like, more in depth. But, because I remember he said, tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain that. And I remember hearing that. That was when I was like a hardcore lefty atheist back in those days. I was a teenager, and I was like, yeah, idiot. The moon is what does the tides, you fucking dummy. But, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, yeah, I mean, literally you can explain it, but metaphorically, what he was talking about, you can't. Yeah, that's the machinations of nature.
Yeah. Funny enough, how the moon actually causes the tide the moon doesn't actually affect the water because water's non-compressible. The moon actually squeezes the tectonic plates under the water and causes the tide to come in and out.
Breaker, that is incorrect.
Are you sure about that?
I am extremely confident, because if the moon was constantly squeezing the tectonic plates, then you would have earthquakes every day. What happens is that the water is attracted to the gravity of the moon, and so literally it swells up to try to get closer to the moon. That's what causes it. It's pulling the water away from the earth. Get science, bitch!
This might have to be a whole other conversation, because I remember hearing about there was a common misconception about the moon causing the tide. Now we're in a whole other fucking different conversation.
Well,
this is why I stick to symbology and allegory. That's my strong suit. You're the science guy.
Yeah. And that's why I usually defer to you when it comes to what the fuck it is that some old dead philosopher said. But you know what? I think that's unless you have anything else that you want to bring up, I think that's a decent place to leave it.
Remember to like, share, and subscribe so that the tide continues to go in and come out. You might not be able to explain it, but what you can explain is sharing this video to all of your friends on social media, just how wonderful it is. All
right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We appreciate you, and peace out.